Producers have one of the most important jobs in film. There's a lot of planning and coordinating that goes into a single production. Now, imagine doing this for over a dozen films in production at the same time. One man who knew how to balance this kind of workload was Irving Thalberg, known in Hollywood as the Boy Wonder. For someone so young, he accomplished more by the age of 37 than most do who live to be 100. In this episode, we're going to look into the life of one of the most influential figures in cinema history. As always, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and support us on Patreon. All links will be down below. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Irving Grant Thalberg was born on May 30th, 1899 in Brooklyn, New York. He was diagnosed with a rare congenital disease called blue baby syndrome. This caused his heart to get a limited amount of oxygen. His doctors predicted that he would live to be at best 30. For much of his life, he was confined to his bed. His mother Henrietta made sure that Irving made the most of the time he had. Irving himself knew that at any time his health could fail him, so he dedicated his life to making his mark. While he did attend school, his condition caused him to be homeschooled when he had to be confined to his bed. He not only spent much of his time reading, but he was also a gifted student. Being homeschooled allowed Irving to have personal attention from his instructors. His hard work eventually paid off, and he graduated high school in 1916 at the age of 17. Irving Thalberg worked a number of different jobs and even considered a career in law. However, fate had different plans for him. His mother and grandmother were well acquainted with the Laemmle family, whose patriarch Carl was the main founder and CEO of Universal Pictures. Their connections got Irving a job as a secretary at Universal's New York office. Some of his duties as secretary were transcribing and editing notes Carl Laemmle had written. His work ethic and insightful observations impressed the CEO very much. Laemmle decided to take Irving under his wing and gave him a special assignment. The two traveled to Universal's Los Angeles office, and the CEO asked his young workhorse to, quote, "keep an eye on things for me," before heading back to New York. 2 months later, Carl Laemmle returned to LA, and Irving gave him a suggestion that reshaped the way Universal conducted business. He said, and I quote, "The first thing you should do is establish a new job of studio manager and give him the responsibility of watching day-to-day operations," unquote. Laemmle's response? "All right, you're it." Understandably shocked, Irving replied, "I'm what?" Laemmle reiterated what he said and named Irving Thalberg Universal's studio manager. At the age of 20, Irving Thalberg had an incredibly important job. While I'm sure most in the industry didn't think he could handle it, given his frail appearance, Irving took to his new job like a duck takes to water. He applied the same work ethic with this responsibility that he did with everything else. What makes this story more special is that Irving achieved this as a non-family member of Carl Laemmle, who was known to hire unqualified members of his family. Thalberg made sweeping changes throughout Universal. One of these changes can be seen as both good and bad. He wanted to make sure that scripts had continuity and did not go over budget if it could be helped. While this worked on an economic scale, this shifted power away from directors and over to producers, limiting their creative freedom and control. Director Erich von Stroheim did not like this change, and would prove to be Thalberg's biggest obstacle to date. Von Stroheim had made a hit at Universal in 1919 with his film Blind Husbands. However, the film had gone both over schedule and over budget, despite the profit it made. In 1922, his film Foolish Wives was going through the same issues, which caused Thalberg to step in. When the director confronted him, he was beyond pissed. Their argument is one of the most infamous in Hollywood history in my own opinion. In their own words, Thalberg said, and I quote, "I have seen all the film and you have all you need for the picture. I want you to stop shooting." Von Stroheim, "But I have not finished as yet." Thalberg, "Yes, you have. You have spent all the money this company can afford. I cannot allow you to spend any more." The young executive reminded him that the director worked under the producer. Erich von Stroheim was not happy with this and said, "If you were not my superior, I would smash you in the face." Not missing a beat, Thalberg replied, "Don't let that stop you." The two would agree to a truce of sorts, and Foolish Wives became another hit for the studio. They tried to continue their truce the next year with von Stroheim's 1923 film Merry-Go-Round. Even with the director promising Thalberg to stay on budget, he still went over production. Von Stroheim apparently felt that he held the cards and could simply go over Thalberg's head to Carl Laemmle, who would acquiesce to the director's demands because of the box office he brought in. His gamble did not pay off, as Irving Thalberg fired him from the production. This sent shockwaves throughout the industry, as Erich von Stroheim was someone who was known to spend millions of dollars without a care, as long as his vision was realized on screen. While Thalberg was willing to work with those who had a vision, he knew the studio could not justify the type of budget von Stroheim would have forced the studio to put up with every picture. This would have a lasting impact for decades, until the end of both the Golden Age and studio system. During the next 3 years, Thalberg was able to improve the quality of Universal's films by making sure that every aspect of the filmmaking process was under control and that scripts were polished before production began. One of the biggest films he produced at Universal was The Hunchback of Notre Dame, starring silent star Lon Chaney Sr. Thalberg made sure the film was a spectacle and even had a replica of the Notre Dame Cathedral built. The film became not only Universal's most profitable silent film, but it also solidified Lon Chaney Sr. as an A-list star. By this time, many top filmmakers wanted to hire Thalberg, including Cecil B. DeMille, saying, "The boy is a genius. I can see it. I know it." His partner Jesse Lasky, however, stated, "Geniuses, we have all we need." Hal Roach also approached Thalberg with an offer, but had to rescind it when he realized the young producer had little experience with slapstick comedies. It would be Louis B. Mayer who would make Thalberg an offer even he couldn't resist. The two had met in 1922, and Mayer was immediately impressed with the young producer, recognizing his ability to combine quality with commercial success. In 1923, Irving Thalberg was made vice president in charge of production at Louis B. Mayer Productions. The timing was impeccable, as another event was about to take place. Theater magnate Marcus Lowe had already purchased Metro Pictures and Goldwyn Studios to supply his fast-growing theater chains with a constant supply of high-quality feature films, and Louis B. Mayer's company was the final piece of the puzzle. Metro-Goldwyn was now Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, with both Mayer and Thalberg in charge of running the studio in Culver City, while Marcus Lowe ran MGM's parent company Lowe's Incorporated from New York City. The formation of MGM was a pivotal moment in cinema history. For Irving Thalberg and Louis B. Mayer, they now had the ability to produce and release one full-length feature film each and every week. All they needed were the right amount of people. They hired everyone from actors, actresses, screenwriters, producers, directors, lighting people, makeup people, set designers, costume designers, painters, carpenters, etc. With this new army of filmmakers, Irving Thalberg was about to embark on his greatest challenge ever. Considering this man's history, Joe and I decided to split this episode into 2 parts. In the next part, we'll look into Thalberg's time at MGM and show you why he was considered a genius. We'll also show you the lasting impact he's had on cinema that's carried on to this very day. If you enjoyed this first part, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also, please support us on Patreon if you can. We're excited to share more of Irving Thalberg's story, so be on the lookout for part 2. For Joe Lewis, I'm Big Rob, and we'll see you again soon.